Wow. I just finished reading The Raven King. Well, not just. I read it last night. And if you haven't heard of this series, this is the fourth book in the Raven Cycle by Maggie Steifvater. And how do you describe this series? What is this series? The series is so difficult to explain without talking to somebody who's read it. So if you haven't read it, this book it's this combination of myth and ghost stories. It's the sort of story you tell around a campfire that you tell for the feeling that you get, and the feeling that you get not just reading the story, but the feeling that you get, a feeling like you're in the story, feeling like this is the world around you, and ghosts lurk in those trees, and magic lurks in those trees. And it's so hard to describe. On the surface, it's about a group of kids looking for a king. But there's so much more than that. And the only way to understand what it's about is to pick it up. The first book's called The Raven Boys. I suggest you start there. Now, if you've gone through The Raven Boys, The Dream series, and Blue Lily Lily Blue, you come to The Raven King. And usually when I read a book, I'm way more excited at the end. But that's not a bad thing, because that's not the sort of book that these are, and The Raven King is a continuation of the series that it's in. It's a strange way to end a series, because this entire series is sort of quiet. It's quietly glorious, if that makes any sense. And so, in The Dusk Jacket, Kirk has said that this truly one-of-a-kind series was going to come to a thundering close, but I disagree. This is not a thundering close, because a thundering close would not be appropriate for this series. This series is a symphony, and it's a quiet symphony. It's a beautiful symphony. There is no thunder. There's just incredible writing, incredible settings, and it's incredible without being loud, which is something that's really hard to explain. But I think if you've read this series, you'll know what I'm trying to say, and you'll understand me. I'm not feeling that well today, but I just needed to get my feelings out. So, if you haven't read this book, is it everything you hoped for? That depends what you were hoping for. For me, it was. And I'm going to get into that by talking about all the spoilers. So if you haven't read it, I strongly suggest you go do that. So the first thing I want to talk about is some of the lighter stuff, like Ronan and Adam, because they were adorable. I love Ronan. I love his character and how he acts like he's this really tough guy, and he's all angry and everything, but he's also kind of just a big sweetie. And so when he and Adam kissed, I was just there like, it's happening, and in the past books, I have definitely shipped Adam and Ronan, but I was sort of leaning more towards Yancey and Blue, but in this book I really started to like, pinch, full on. I think they're probably my favorite ship now. Although it's so close between those two ships. I loved Ronan. It's gonna sound really weird, but like Dad Ronan. Just like the way that he interacts with Orphan Girl. Like at the end, he's given her a name. He's calling her Opal. Like literally, she's his kid. He's a dad. And this part at the beginning where Blue's there, like, well, I got suspended, and he's there like, yes, that's my friend, gold stars, plaster the child with gold stars, and just his pure reaction to that, and Blue's just sort of there like, grudgingly, okay, I'll fist bump you. I just love that moment. I love the moments like that in this series where it's just so fun and so light, and I mean, it feels different for me, these moments in this series compared to funny moments in other series, just because once again, of the ambiance of this series. We got a bit of a new character. Henry Chang became sort of like a major player. Not major, but, you know, he sort of joined our group, and I really didn't trust him at first, and they're like, this is going to backfire, this is going to backfire, I don't trust him, I don't trust him, I don't trust him, but I was wrong, and every single time that they mentioned the Vancouver crowd, I would be there, yes, yes, Canada represent, because American authors, they always forget about us. We exist too. Like, I want some paranormal, urban fantasy stuff going up in my city. Why does nobody ever do that? They really should. My city's totally worthy of it. Then, of course, I'm going to get into the end because, you know, the beginning was nice, but the end was just feelings ramped up. I'm going to start with dead Glendor, like, not just sort of like, oh yeah, he's dead and he needs to be woken up. Like, when they find him, he's actually dead. And I liked that. I feel like there will be people who will read this book and who have read this book and went, I didn't like that because that was what was driving them throughout the entire story. But I felt like, I remember going into this thinking, if they just, you know, they wake Glendor up, and Gansey's died, and they go, our one favor is going to be to save him, it's going to be kind of cheap. And, you know, you've sort of sacrificed my worry, because I'm pretty sure that that's how it's going to turn out. But the second that they found Glendor, all of a sudden, my worry skyrocketed, because I'm there like, oh crap, oh crap, oh crap, how are we going to save Gansey now? How's that going to happen? And I also feel like it fits. So there's a bit of camera trouble, and I'm keeping on going. I was talking about how Glendor, once we found out he was dead, I was even more nervous, and that it fit the story, just because the story is an unexpected and somewhat beautifully anticlimactic story. Like, there's never a big battle at the end, so it made sense that these people would find that what they've been looking for really isn't there, and that it's all on their own, and they need to defeat the demon all by themselves. And I also just like stories like that where people realize that, you know, there's no supernatural force coming to save them. It's all them. And it also terrified me because I didn't want to lose Gansey. And then Maggie Steifvater started going on about how, you know, they are all kings in their own way. You know, Gansey was just Gansey, so he's a king. Ronan was king of a dream world, and by that time I was breaking, you know, down emotionally on a city bus, and people were looking at me funny. I also really liked how she constantly started chapters with, you know, depending on where you started, the story was about this person, or because it felt appropriate to the story, and it also continued something that she's done a little throughout the entire series, which was sort of just leaning a little on the fourth wall and acknowledging that, you know, not just are they all stories, by extension we're all stories too. And I love it when authors do that. I love it when authors talk, or have their characters talk about stories within the story. It just gives me so much hope that I could do something awesome, and one day, you know, I'll be a story. I already am. And also, Cabeswater. I just want to talk about Cabeswater because its sacrifice really affected me. Cabeswater almost became a character in this series. You know, it talked. It had its own will. And by that I don't mean like the kind you write when you're about to die. Like, it had things that it wanted. It had people that it liked. It helped them out. And it was just so beautiful. And it reminds me a bit of something that people often say is a common theme in Lord of the Rings, which is this idea of, you know, the destruction of the old ways in nature. And so you've sort of got that going on with the idea of this destruction of this beautiful magical forest, but at the same time it's not completely destroyed, and it does it to bring back a boy. And oh my god, at that point I'd reached, I was visiting my dad at his office, and at that point I was just an emotional mess, and I'm sitting in his office, you know. Also, a funny way about how I see this book is I see Cabeswater as almost being equal to the book and the story. So when Cabe's ended to sacrifice itself for Gansey, the story also had to end to sacrifice itself for Gansey. If Gansey hadn't come back to life, the story would have gone on. So the trade-off is that the story in Cabe's ends, but we get Gansey back. Speaking of the end of the story, the one thing that I didn't really like is how open the ending was. You've got Rowan dreaming, and they're all going to Venezuela, and, well, I get why Maggie Steifvater did it, and I sort of like it because there's this sense of, oh yes, it could be real, even after the book is done, the story continues on. But one, it clashes with my book ends to save Gansey idea a little, which I really like. And two, it just always feels like whenever that happens, like the whole thing with the tire, that was one of those things when they're like, ooh, what's that gonna mean? And then they're like, and when I say they, I mean Maggie Steifvater, they're like, yeah, we're gonna address that in a future adventure, which you're not gonna get to see. So that was a bit of a letdown. But that was like my only negative thing about the book, and I still really enjoyed the ending, and I really liked the ending. I love Ronan and his little crazy hoof-footed daughter. And then I just want to say why this book means so much to me, because it's really hard if, you're trying to explain what a story is about to somebody, and it's just a really hard story to explain, for them to understand why a book is important to you. And I really like this book because it reflects the magic and the wonder that I find in wild places. When I'm in a forest, when I'm in the middle of a field, and I feel like I'm just really far away from civilization, there is this sort of feeling that I think Maggie Steifvater's really captured with Cabe's, that anything's possible. Are the trees talking to each other? That sort of like whispering wind thing going on. Could those leaves become fish? And she just captured how I feel about it perfectly. And then Glendower also, the whole obsession with Glendower also makes a lot of sense to me, because I love old buildings, I love old legends, and so I really felt that that was another thing that I could really relate to and understand, and one of the things that made me love this series so much. So, The Raven Boys. It is quite possibly the best book in this series, but that is definitely open to debate. There are a lot of really good books in this series. It's beautifully written. It's romantic without being, really graphic, which is nice, because you can find a lot of stuff out there that's really steamy, but this just perfectly balances along that line, and it's also just a lot of fun, but not the normal kind of fun, the more sort of atmospheric kind of fun, the sort of fun that you find when you go on hikes and you stumble across something and you feel like maybe nobody else has ever noticed how beautiful it is except you. And so I'm going to ask whoever's watching this video, what does the book mean to you? Because like Cabe's, the people who experience this book are the ones who get to sort of decide what type of book this is. It's so hard to do that. So, it's different for every person. So just like when you went into Cabe's with somebody, they might create, I don't know, things that fall up. And when you read this book, you might notice different things. You might find different ways to relate to it. You might find different ways to explain it. So how would you do that? It's a really broad question, but I'm just curious. If you're watching this and you have any opinions, comment them, and I'll read them and see what different people feel like about this book. And also, you should like this video, because my camera failed on me 10 times. So, that took some perseverance to make this video, but I needed to make it because I just had so many feelings about this book. Anyway, so I'll see you next time with whatever I decide to do. I'm not really sure what I'm going to read next, but I'm sure whatever it is, it'll be awesome.